So I just got to look at the new Astroworld Tragedy Documentary that released on Netflix. You know, with Travis Scott's concert festival. Uh, Obviously, just really devastating. When you first hear about the story back in 2021, it's just like this is something that shouldn't happen. Like 10 people dying at this festival should not have happened, and it brings about a lot of emotion. It brings a lot of anger, a lot of confusion as to what happened. I thought the documentary really opened up what was going on behind the scenes, what was going on that we didn't know about. Because you look on the news and like you're just left with a bunch of questions like, well, how did we get here? What happened to get to this point? Now, people who follow Travis Scott like myself, I'm a fan of Travis Scott and his music. You kind of understand the reputation that comes with his concerts. You understand how it goes. This guy's been performing for almost a decade now, so there's plenty of footage and plenty of examples of how his concerts go about. So they talked about the setup, the way that the concert was set up as far as perimeters and all that. It was literally destined to become a disaster. The way it looked, because the way that the crowd filtered in, you just had two sections of crowds that were absolutely trapped. They couldn't get out, without forcing themselves over the railings. Like if you watch the documentary, you'll see what I'm talking about. Like a lot of people, a lot of fans, a lot of concert goers were trying to force their way out, by going over the railings where the security and the medical teams are. It got to a point like where during Travis Scott's performance, like there were four different CPRs going on active. That's enough grounds to stop the show, in my opinion. And here's where I am with the blame that is placed on Travis Scott. I want to be very clear when I say this. Travis Scott is not blameless. He is not blameless. I want to be very clear about that. But I disagree with putting all of this on Travis Scott. That's the part that I don't agree with. We've seen in the past, and even in this first documentary with Look Mom, I Can Fly, we've seen Travis Scott, constantly, pause shows for a second, say, hey, I see somebody that needs help. Somebody please get him help and everything. I've seen him do that. But this was a situation where so many people needed help. People were getting trampled. People were getting, literally crushed to death. And people want to blame Travis for not stopping the show because he didn't for not seeing it. If you look at where Travis Scott was, I don't believe there was a way that he could have seen everything that was going on. You had two different sections of people that were, literally crying for help, calling for help to get out of there. But then you had so many other fans, like thousands, tens of thousands of fans still just vibing to the concert, listening to him perform, and having a good time. There weren't any issues there. So I feel like Travis, I don't believe that Travis would have just kept going had he actually seen what was going on. I don't believe that for 1 second. I don't think he's that kind of person. I don't think so. I don't know the guy. It just doesn't seem that he would be that type of person. It just, if you see something that crazy going on and you just don't stop the show, I don't think he would have just kept going had he seen that. The people that need to be blamed and need to be, have criminal charges going against them is the people who in Live Nation, that had communication about what was going on the ground. Like they pulled out text messages, saying like, hey, we should probably stop the show. There's stuff going on. And the person who I guess had the authority to do that just said, hey, we'll do that in a few minutes. So you're allowing the performance to go on even after you know what's going on. You allow the performance to continue even though there's people crying for help and getting crushed. I don't understand how you make a decision like that. The reasoning was we don't want to start a full crowd panic and everything if we just stop the show abruptly. That part never made sense to me. I'm like, bro, all you have to do is just stop the show and people will, and then announce what is going on and then go from there. But to allow the performance to continue, it eventually led to more deaths. And it was difficult to watch because you go to a festival, you go to concerts, you never imagine something like this to go on. Like something like this, like, no, you don't imagine that. Just imagine going to a concert, enjoying yourself and having memories to talk about for a long, long time. And unfortunately, a lot of families were affected, and lives were lost, and people were just like really scarred from going to what should be one of the most fun things you can do, especially over the summertime or whatever the time period was. It was really hard to watch. And, you talk about this venue could not fit 50,000 people to begin with. So you have just so many failures and just, people cutting corners and people just flat out ignoring safety concerns that really is a difference between saving lives and losing them. If you knew that this venue couldn't hold that many people, especially 50,000 with tickets, then why would you put out 50,000 tickets to begin with? On top of that, you had security that absolutely failed in containing people that didn't have tickets, and clown defenses were bulldozing through security to get in there. You know how this goes, especially with Live Nation does concerts. This is what they do. You also know Travis Scott. You know how his concerts are. There were so many things that you could have done to prevent this, and you just chose not to. That's the bottom line. You chose not to heed to the safety concerns. You chose just to say, hey, you know what? It's okay. We'll figure it out, or it won't be that bad. There's text messages of people believed to be within Live Nation saying, hey, this could really get bad really fast. We need to do something. People did nothing. So again, Travis Scott is not blameless, but I disagree with putting everything that happened on him. A lot of this needs to go on the people that had control of stopping the show and the people that were putting this concert together to begin with. That's where the responsibility should lie.